हमारे आज के गेस्ट हैं. So we have with us बुरहान कऊसा. उनके बारे में थोड़ा सा मैं आपको बताऊंगा. बहुत कुछ है बोलने के लिए, but just a couple of things. Burhan Qawosa graduated from International Islamic University in Malaysia with a bachelor's degree in finance, and he has received MBA from Wright State University. He is currently the Associate Vice President of Financial Operations at Wright State University. So join me in welcoming our today's guest with warm and all the love that you show to every guest. Burhan Saab, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Umar, is my audio okay? Can you guys hear me?
Please go ahead.
Acha, to मैं करियो screen to share. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for joining. Varya shukriya, everybody joined. And just a little bit about me, which was originally from Naivty Rozan, bilkul next to Jama Masjid. Then Buxpoi Rozan, and then Padras 12th path, and I went to Malaysia. The interesting cheese on it came Unisys. I think this is the first time I've talked to him a couple of weeks ago. So hey, let's have this session. And as we were talking, I told him, yeah, do you know this guy? And he said, well, I don't know that guy. There was another, his cousin was with him, and he said, well, I do know that guy. So when I was in Malaysia, there were other Kashmiri students there. Some of them are now in Houston, where Yunus is. And all of that I'm trying to say is that Kashir Chak is jai, as you even go through the world, you end up connecting with people from there. And then connection for the sake of connection is pointless. What has to come out of that connection is that now Yunus and I getting to know each other, how can Yunus and I be help to you? So just keep that in mind. Kashiri Nabar Chu, yeah, Kashiri Manchu, anybody who you need help from. All of us are available. Sorry, I was getting some feedback. So my goal is that 10-15 minutes se zyada I don't want to quote unquote present. Primarily, what I mostly want to do is take questions from everybody. So Busraj, I'm with Yunus's help, kind of how to introduce finance to everybody here. And the way I started thinking about it is there's a basic thing in the world which has gone on for centuries. There's a group of people who have more money than they need. They have more money than they need. They make 10,000. They spend 5,000. They're left with 5,000. What do they do with that 5,000? And then there is a set of people who have ideas as to what they want to do with money, but they don't have the money to invest. So basic financial markets are, can we have a system? Can there be a system whereby we can figure out how best to connect people who have money to invest but don't have ideas with entities who have ideas but don't necessarily have the funds to invest? And all of this will work if there is a system whereby there is trust from those who have money to give that money to the entities who need the money. So this is the fundamental idea of financial markets. It takes many shapes. It takes shapes as simple as आपका कोई neighbor है, आप उसको जानते हो, आपको idea आता है, hey, I want to start a small business. Magar main chhinu pohnsai. Are you willing to lend me 1,000 rupees? Right? It is as simple as that to as complex as you have an idea, you're launching a company like Tesla. It's an electric car company. There are people investing in it, shares who have no connection with you and who don't know who the owner of Tesla is. Right? So fundamentally, that is what it is. How do you connect those who have funds to those who need funds? As the world is getting more and more connected, it's a pretty connected world right now. Money moves from any part of the world to any other part of the world. This is finance. Overlapped with that is there are other factors at play which change the way we operate in this environment. And that's my second and last, or I should say third and last slide, because I want to give you some context of when we talk about finance, what different types of shapes it takes. This essentially the Black-Scholes formula. I like this one because this formula was, I think, came about, and Yunus can help me, maybe in the 60s. There's three people who came up with this formula, and they received the Nobel Prize. Only two received the Nobel Prize of the three. And something interesting about Nobel Prizes is you have to be alive to receive it. That's why only two got it. For those people to get to this formula, right, there was 300 years of people learned something in chemistry. Who has, and you can kind of raise your hand, who has heard of Brownian motion? We learned it sometime in I think high school. There was something called Brownian motion, random particles, which is science 12th, so I don't remember the details. But something in chemistry, something in physics, something in math. In many disciplines, things happened that one day we were able to come up with a formula that explains something in finance. I'm putting this up here because I'm trying to point out to you that there are many paths to getting to a career in finance. And science and math is one of them. Other side, there is now, last 20 years likely, there is a big emphasis on behavioral finance. It's not all math, it's also about how people think. So there are behavioral, psychological things that go into how people make financial decisions. For example, what research has found is into overconfidence. What research has found is when making financial decisions, men display a lot of overconfidence compared to women. Or what research has also found is that sometimes when we're making decisions, we are overconfident about the outcome. So this point of this is those who study psychology, say in college, they take very little math. But psychology is also, through behavioral finance, a very big influencer in finance. You went to Hun's generation, the woke generation, the kind of environmentally conscious generation. What is the impact of businesses on society, on humanity? So now we're beginning to see a lot about impact investing, that people with a lot of money, especially young people in Western countries, they are now very focused on what is our impact on the environment. We have finance has been around for hundreds of years, but now overlay on this technological revolution, and it is changing the way the traditional industry works. Qawosa-san, you have to go to a bank. You have to deposit a check. You have to withdraw a check. You have to do this. All of this takes 3 days, 4 days. Now, small companies start up. They, using information technology, revolutionize how to process payments. Right? So technology is now taking on a big role in revolutionizing finance. So that tells you there's an engineering path to a career in finance. But given our background, where we are from, and South Asia, Kashmir, Pakistan, upward, this hasn't taken on that much, as much it has taken in Indonesia, Malaysia, and to some extent Middle East. No, finance is good, modern finance is fine, but it has to be within the constructs of Islam. So Sharia compliant finance. So you get a lot of people who are now going into finance, they're going into Islamic finance, but their training is legal. They go through law school. So hopefully what I'm trying to point out to you here is there are multiple paths to a career in finance. And those paths come through engineering, they come through mathematics, they come through law degrees, they come through arts, psychology, sociology, all that stuff. All of this, one thing I can say, my experience is limited to US. The more mathematical your path to finance, the less the rank of the university matters. The less mathematical your path to finance, the more the rank of your university is going to matter. Agar to high school, you complete high school, inshallah, but you want to go to college, and down the road you want to go into finance. Think about it. There are many paths to this. Mission Pai, how many of you have watched the movie? It's one of my favorite movies, Three Idiots. Tamashu Amir Khan, at one point, he tells somebody, he says, that guy now has a job in a bank. Then Chasan got engineering kar Mustafa MBA. The punch is, agar MBA hi karna tha, to pehle engineering kyun ki? The answer to that is that there are some very important paths in finance whereby you will only get there if you come from an engineering background. I think that's plenty as far as I have spoken. Maybe it is longer than I should have spoken for. If Yunus wants to add something, Yunus, please do, if he has been allowed into the room. And after that, let's open it up for questions.
Thank you so much. We have Yunsab with us. Yunsab, if you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. Burhan, no, this is a good start. As you rightly pointed out, we wanted this more to be a panel discussion, basically, right? An interactive discussion rather than slides. Though I have some slides as well, which I might just take 5 minutes, later to go over, just to sum up what you have said. My first question to you would be as follows. Let me start the discussion. So for somebody who is aspiring, to a career path in finance through a university education, right? Since you kind of cross both worlds, you are an educator and you are also, in a way, you're also a financial professional, right? What advice would you give them? What is the pathway that they can take? In order to basically, go from where they are, which is the high school level currently, to a career in finance.
So that's a great question, because that's really at the end of the day, right? You have to chart out a path. But sure, life doesn't necessarily let you stay on that path. It's then a zigzag path. It's never a straight path. So let's take one option, and one option is undergraduate in Kashmir, India, graduate studies outside. there is a bias toward hiring people who come from a STEM background, engineering, mathematics, etc. So one path you can take is, hey, I'm going to get an undergraduate bachelor's degree in Kashmir, India, in that side. And I'm going to it's going to cost me less. I'm going to use that time to save money. And then I'm going to get a graduate degree in US, Canada, UK, whatever the case may be. And if you take the engineering or mathematics route, you are in a better position then to get employed in, say, US and other places. Because engineering, right, even here in the US, engineering is it's a high demand field. So you don't have to start out your first job in finance. I have a lot of students who they come from chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, or even come from Qawosa. He was actually a physician. He was a cardiologist. And age 50, he said, I'm done. Mission cardiologist banun. I said, why? He said, because I don't want to be on call on the weekends. I don't want to do calls anymore. So my recommendation always to agar main panun shurte aise high school can I'll give the same recommendation. If you are good at math, take the math route. It gives you more options down the road. And there's something I said earlier, which is the more mathematical your undergraduate degree, the less the rank of the university matters. So then the question is, well, what if I want to start at an undergraduate level? That's fine too. Getting into an undergraduate degree in the US is even easier than getting into a graduate degree in the US. Education here is a business. Every customer is going to find somebody willing to sell education to them in terms of where you can get accepted. So you take that step back, then in high school you start thinking about, okay, how do I get into, my experience is limited to US, so I'll say US. How do I get into US at an undergraduate level? So that's where you start, okay, they have testing. What kind of testing do they have? Oh, they have this thing called SAT. So you start researching that part. There are some schools that don't even require SAT, but they will look at what things were you involved in. Well, I was involved in KEI. Well, I used to volunteer here. Well, I used to do this. Just the experiences which Kashmiri kids come from, given the environment there, that itself, you have to put that in your application when you apply. It's a miracle, Kashmirians, what you kids go through, in the environment you go through, in the stressed environment you go through. This is an amazing feat that you finish high school and then go to college. So start thinking, whether graduate or undergrad, start thinking how that system works. Oh, that system works on, I need to have volunteering, involvement in extracurricular. I need to take these tests for graduate school, GRE, GMAT, for undergraduate SAT, but start looking at that and start practicing that. These things are not hard. These things are not harder than anything you have done in your high school. Yunus, if I didn't answer the question you asked, redirect me, please.
No, I'm not going to redirect you. I think you did answer the question, but I have a follow-up question to that. As you rightly said, जैसे आपने फरमाया कि education is a business in the US and in many parts of the world nowadays, right? And the cost of education in the US, the undergrad or graduate level, is very prohibitive, right? So for a person of limited means, who aspires to a degree in the US and eventually a career in the US or elsewhere, right? How do you suggest that he goes right about about his process, such that he receives some funding, or he's able to fund, or he or she are able to fund their education and he places minimal financial burden, for lack of a better word, on his own resources and what have you?
Oh, yep, excellent question. So there are thousands of universities, and let's just stick with US, right? There are thousands of universities. Get your private university, state university, there are thousands. And then there are some universities which will focus on, hey, we want to support education in a certain part of the world, and then they will have scholarships associated with that. There's the State Department. You say to I don't know what would be analogous to that, Foreign Ministry, right? They have educational support programs whereby they want to bring in students from around the world. Every university here kind of has two offices. Akshasan, an office that is for international students. So when you start saying, okay, I'm going to find 10 universities from New York, right? You just Google universities, New York, best universities, best finance, whatever. You come up with a list of 10. And then you say, I'm going to contact these 10 over the next 2 weeks. And I'm going to send an email to the international office who is responsible for recruiting international students. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm a student here in Kashmir. I have limited financial means. I'm looking for scholarships. What scholarship programs do you have for example, I'm a female student in 11th grade, but my performance in mathematics is, very high. Do you have STEM scholarships for female students, right? So what is different about you? Right. We were on a call a couple of weeks ago, and there was that girl who was a martial arts champion. I mean, I can see, majoros, but I can see a Harvard or a Yale going crazy over that student.
Yep.
And saying, we want her here. But you have to tell your story, right? And then you have to find a place who wants your story, because not every university is going to value something like that. So reach out to the internet, make a list every week, and then reach out to the international office and say, I am interested in this. This is me. Do you have scholarships available for me? So as far as getting financing from US, that is not going to happen. The financing, borrowing money for your education, that's going to happen in Kashmir. So that's the approach I would take. And two, what I said much earlier is, the other way you can look at it is look at it as a slightly longer term plan and say, hey, bachelor's degree is going to be more affordable in Kashmir. Graduate degree is going to be where I spend money. And graduate degree, Manshasan, there is typically, you can find universities that support graduate students by giving them an assistantship. That's how I worked here. I got an assistantship. I used to work on campus. I used to do research for my professors, and I didn't pay. Tuition was waived in the sense, yeah, I was an employee for the university.
Thank you. Umar, let's open it up to everybody, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Burhan Sahab. I think that was very insightful. Scholar, so we are throwing it open to you. I know you have a lot of questions. We can begin with any question verbally, and meanwhile you can write down your questions in the chat box as well. So I have some faces in front of me. They look very energetic. We can begin with them. Insha, you can go ahead with your question, followed by Snowball.
Assalamu alaikum, Insha, please go ahead.
If you're saying something, you are muted, Insha. No problem. Uh, you can take your time. We can have OS Ahmad Ganai. OS, you can unmute yourself and go ahead with your question.
No, sir, I have not any question yet.
I saw you raise. Okay, wait. So I saw you raising the hand, but you guys can write down the question in the chat box. Okay. So there, so you have okay. So there is a question from Adil. Uh, it is a private question. Okay, so it is in the private chat box. So Burhan sir, he is asking. So I mean, thank you so much, sir. It was a very insightful session. But it is very hard to convince our parents beyond medical and engineering. How should we go about it?
Sure. Back to that movie Three Idiots. मेरा बेटा engineer बनेगा. अगर तो इसको, if anybody who's okay with watching movies, you should watch that movie, because I actually have a different opinion of that movie altogether. See, I had to convince my parents that I don't want to go to medical school or engineering. So same thing happened. And at the end of the day, you see, I said kind of two extreme things there. At the end of the day, once you go down a path, Ashupata Molmoj support Karan, in the sense they do anything they can do for us, right? So leave that part aside, because that is down the road. This is the other conversation I'd have with you, and I would talk a lot like your parents, and I'd say, okay, you don't want to do engineering, you don't want to do medicine, you want to go into finance, or you want to go into something else. It's going to be harder. It is going to be harder. So you cannot escape from that reality. Answer, this is going to be harder. Even if, let's say, you are in US right now, somebody who graduates with an engineering degree versus somebody who graduates with a finance degree, somebody graduating with an engineering degree is going to have an easier job, is going to have an easier time finding employment. So there are two paths here. If you're interested in, if engineering doesn't bother you, go ahead and do engineering. With this in mind, that after engineering, you're going to go into finance. The second part of this is, you're not interested in engineering, you really want to go into finance, but what is the career path you want to take once you come out of finance? So there are some areas of finance which are very employable. For example, accounting. So if you go into accounting, I think India's Mochasan, I think it's called ACCA Shayad, if I chartered accountancy, or if I remember this correctly. So there are certain areas in finance whereby there is more certainty in the types of jobs that you're going to have. The other part you have to then be willing to commit is, I'm not doing engineering, I'm doing finance. It is harder for employment, so I have to work harder here. I can no longer be just one of the 100 engineering graduates. I now really have to perform at the top, because I have chosen a field which is harder than another field. So what your parents need to see from you is, I'll be blunt about this, you are not skipping engineering because that's the harder thing to do. You're not trying to avoid a difficult degree. They need to see from you is, here are all the careers in finance, and here is why I want to do finance, and I am going to either do engineering and then finance, or I'm going to find a really good university to go to finance in. It has to be more than, right? You have to have reasons why you are choosing finance, and you have to play it out. Hey, agar it can go, look, there is a path here. Agar it can go, look, there is a path here. It cannot be just, hey, I want to do finance. If you were a parent, you would act just like they are acting and say, but what is the what is the plan? There's a couple of questions in the chat here. I want to keep track of it. I think
Burhan, can I, Burhan, can I
sorry, go ahead.
Something to what you said, please? Is that okay, Umar?
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
My advice, I mean, for anybody, who's starting, his, career or his undergrad right now, basically, would be to actually take the STEM path, right? To a career in finance, even if that is what they want to do, basically. Because our world is changing very, very quickly. And never before, I have been in this field, I mean, for the better part of 25, 26 years now today, right? Never before have we seen the marriage of technology with finance, as we are seeing now, right? Burhan spoke about it. When we talk about capital markets infrastructure or fintech, there's a huge confluence between finance and technology. Therefore, people, who are already, who know technology, who come from a STEM path, are going to have like an easier route into finance. I mean, than those, who come from other paths, basically, right? Because in 5 years, I mean, look at how much has changed today, right? You have pay time, you have this, you have that. In 5 years, Amazon is going to become a bank, basically, or Apple will have their own, financial institution. I mean, they're already halfway there right now. All this is going to come together, basically, right? And it's happening at a very quick pace. So I would almost strongly recommend, or advise kids, who are doing this right now or who are desirous of careers in finance to go down this path, basically. Like data science is already a big part of finance. It's going to be an even bigger part of finance, basically, right? Because as you have more and more data, you have time series, right? I mean, financial markets are about having time series data, to a large extent, right? You have that. I work in the trading area, in the financial markets or commodity markets area. Just in the last 5 years, we have seen a huge revolution in our country in terms of like what the cloud has been able to do for us, right? How it has made, data cheaper, infrastructure very, very cheap. एक ज़माना था कि 10 phone होते थे आपके पास, right? Or just to get that infrastructure, it used to cost a horrendous amount of money. I mean, to put you in that seat. Now you have a small, all of that information is on the cloud, and through voice over IP, it has minimized that communication, basically, like the cost of communication. So, in summary, my advice would be, to go down the path of STEM, because it opens up a lot more options for you, rather than, going on a pure play, basically financial area, which ultimately, basically, might be a little bit limiting. We can talk about this for 20 sessions, so, as to what are some of the changes that are happening, where the world is going, so forth and so on. But we wanted to keep this discussion at a very high level. So, and take your questions, mostly. So, Umar, please, the next question for Burhan Sahab.
Thank you so much. I see some cameras going off. I'll request you to get back quickly. Can you just send the hearts back? We miss your hearts. Yeah. Fresh faces. Iftari mein bas kam time hai abhi.
So, Umar, I have a question.
Yeah, sir. Please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum.
Sir is GM of Kashmir Education Initiative, by the way, just for introduction. Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum, Burhan sir. And Assalamualaikum, everybody. So Burhan sir, when we talk about fintech, so because also we have to look at the current things that are happening in the finance market, is like you look at these bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, and all these new things that are coming up. So are there any specialized courses where we can do finances and the technology, and then we can connect the two? Are there any such courses being offered right now?
So, great question. This will take me a few minutes to answer, so I apologize. One thing that has happened in education in the last 10 years is something that happened in, let's say, music, I don't know, 70, 80, 100 years ago. For example, har mahlo sasan, har gaam sasan ya shahar sasan, there used to be artists. Right? Every little neighborhood could have one. So Kashir Madasan agar hath mahalo is, pancha nafar aisi kaar kara. Then the gramophone came, right? And if you think about music right now, I'm just taking music for an example, I can name 10 artists who everybody knows, no matter where in the world they live. And these 10 artists make millions and millions of dollars. So this is the concept of scalability. So you can take somebody singing a song, you can record it, and you don't have to be in the room to listen to it. Because we now have, right, we have digitized the song. Exactly same thing has now happened to education. You can take the best blockchain professor in the world. He or she can make a video. Anybody in the world can watch the video. Education is education to a large extent, it has been democratized. All you need is now curiosity. So, example demo, Coursera. Coursera is called it's a massive online, anyway, it's called whatever it's called doesn't matter. So I can go on Coursera for free with curiosity that I want to learn something and an internet connection. I can take a course in blockchain, use cryptocurrency and underlying infrastructure, right? I can learn about blockchain for free from somebody who works at IBM and somebody who teaches at Harvard. They have gotten together and they have created an online course on cryptocurrency, on blockchain. So once you internet aspect, YouTube aspect, or even Coursera, edX, HarvardX, there are all these things for free. And there are thousands and thousands of students who take these, so you can find it and you can learn it for free. So maybe what we can do on our end in KEI, we can create a list of these, so you know where to go. That is the path I would take. So if you're in high school, going back to what Yunus was saying, you're in high school and you go like, I'm going to do one of these per month or one every 2 months. The path will be colleges will apply to kara, and you're saying, I'm interested in cryptocurrency, or I'm interested in this. Look what I have done for the last 2 years. I used to take these courses online and they give you certificates also. So you can find for free.
The audio?
Sorry?
Can you guys?
No, we can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay.
we can hear.
Okay, sorry. So you can find these for free. I want to go back to something Yunus said because this is very important. If the advice I would give my kid, agar myon shura ase high school asmans, STEM. With a degree in, say, math, you can get a finance job. You can get many other jobs with a degree in engineering. But with a degree in finance, it becomes a little more limiting. One difference I will make is, says, then Bloomberg is a big finance company, or I was once visiting their office and used to first year hire Karanchi, straight out of college. They sit on the help desk at Bloomberg. So I went around asking everybody what their degree was. And Ms. Wilson said, "What's your degree?" "Oh, I graduated with psychology." "What was your degree?" "I graduated biology." "What was your degree?" I spoke to 20 people, and out of 20, one had a degree in finance. The other 19 did not. They were from all over the place. But you know why they were there? Because they were from Harvard, Yale. They were from highly ranked schools. So if you can get into a highly ranked school, then it's a little easier, because they know if you could do a psychology degree, say at Harvard, you're going to be able to do anything. But if you're not going to get into those really big name schools, then the path you take is you go STEM. If you're going to be in a car, it's better to have your tank full and wear a seat belt. Right? It's basically insurance in Sahela. Hey, what is my easier path here? The easier path here is always gaadi ko thaun petrol tank full to seat belt lagun. It's a safety issue. So there's plenty of places you can find ways to learn about these things.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. So we have Tazia Zahra with a question. Tazia Zahra, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
So am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
So my question is that right now I have opted for, I have taken PCBM, Medical Plus Math stream. And I'm a both engineering as well as medical student. So what if I want further career in finance? What should I do? I mean, what is the procedure for that?
What Yunus said earlier, if you are in both streams, medical and engineering, if you get into an engineering school, go to an engineering school. And then say, got a bachelor's degree in engineering, then I'm going to go get a master's degree. It can be in many things. It can be in financial engineering. It can be in financial mathematics. You could even then say, I'm going to get a master's degree in computer science, but then I'm going to find a job at a bank. Majority in finance. They actually do not have a finance degree. They actually come from engineering. So, which is I work at a university. University is traditional. It is not Amazon. It is not Apple. It is not Google. Right? It's just a university. It's new division to financial operations. One of the units in financial operations is business intelligence. And the people who work in business intelligence, they have computer science degrees. They have statistics degrees. None of them have a finance degree, but they work in finance. Because as Yunus said, right, computers have become cheap. It has become cheap to do two things. It has become cheap to store data, and it has become cheap to compute, to run programs. These two things have become cheap, which has meant that most things are moving more and more toward automation, into artificial intelligence, into algorithms. Our career as a finance assessment, personal financial planner. A very lucrative career, say, in the US. So I'm a financial planner. That's a much a client, they're a family. That's a what should you invest in? That's a what should you save? 90% of that job is now taken by artificial intelligence. You enter your information, there's a program, it has variables. Age, here is what you need to do. This job used to take a human being 1 week of analysis. This job is taking an algorithm 3 seconds to produce an answer. So, agar toish interest in math, and you are in high school and you are in both medical and non-medical, first step, find an engineering degree. Second step, in parallel, apply to business schools. Say, agar koi kashir nebar chuniyarun, but can you get into a top business school? Mission pa India means ranking, but get into a good one. It's so kind of the more mathematics, the more quantitative you are, the less the ranking matters. The less STEM you want to go, you better get into a really highly ranked to make your life a little easier.
I think I'm going to add one more thing, which Burhan touched upon, which is very important. That firstly, it wasn't that different when I graduated as well. People who had degrees in physics, for example. Finance is a very highly quantitative field, has always been like that, especially financial engineering, financial risk management, capital markets, basically, right? It's a field that has always dealt with numbers, right? And because it's a quantitative field, people, who come from a quantitative background have a better intuitive understanding of all these, right, of numbers, of dealing with numbers. They're better prepared than people who don't have that background, right? Burhan, right? I think his second slide was about Black-Scholes, basically, right? And he spoke about, the Brownian motion and what have you, right? So multiple things went into that formula, right? Right at the outset, it took people, some time to put it together, so forth, right? But a physicist, or a math major has a better intuitive understanding of that path of motion, right? And the predicted path of like stock prices or what have you that comes from that formula than somebody with a liberal arts degree. It's just like how it's your training, because if you have to build a house, you have to build a foundation first. If you want to get into that area of finance, it's good to have like a math degree or a degree in STEM. The second point that Burhan was making is how technology mostly, right, is democratizing finance as well. He said that there are, I think, he said that the jobs that existed a certain, he gave you a financial planner's job, right, and said that now it can be done by a computer in 5 minutes because computing technology has become so advanced, become so cheap, so forth and so on. I'm convinced that the job that I do, basically, right, in 7 to 8 years, maybe even quicker than that, 95% of the jobs in my field, are going to be taken over by computers, basically, or 90% of that, right? Because at the end of the day, we already and we are already working on making sure that we are at the forefront of all of that, because it's going to outsource us. We are going to be the biggest casualties of all of this, right? Because computers can think faster than a human mind can, right? Data and storing of data, access to data, the architecture that allows you to access to data is very, very cheap now, right? Again, if you build in the right algorithms, basically, right, they do what you do much faster than you can do. That is one of the primary reasons why we have, again, a big demand for computer science graduates, basically, right? People who know how to handle data in our field as well. So those are two things I would like to add to that. The third thing is the democratization of this industry, right? Crowdfunding is one thing that you will see, and it's that you already see, right? आज की डेट में हम ऐसा करते हैं कि भाई, मैं नॉन प्रॉफिट के हवाले से आपको बोलूँगा कि हम कहते हैं कि भाई KEI है, an organization in Kashmir, and we put it on crowdfunding, platforms, and we say that हमें एक computer lab बनाना है कश्मीर के लिए, right? दुनिया के सारे लोग जो हैं, have affinity for education, वो हमें कोई 10 रुपए देता है, कोई 100 रुपए देता है, कोई 1000 रुपया देता है, and they try and help us, get to our, right? The same concept also exists in finance, right? If you have a good idea about a project you want to do, or a business basically that you want to start. And, you can present it, right? You have funding, coming to you from like all sorts of different places, basically, and all sorts of investors that fund this idea. Why? Because the infrastructure has made this possible, right? The platform, the internet, the payment, vehicles basically that are being used, they have made all of this possible. So that is why, like, again, there is so much demand basically, and it helps having a technology background or a STEM background. I hope I answered this question. My short answer to you would be focus on your like STEM or your medical education for now. When you get to that crossroads, basically, you can always bridge that gap and take a career in finance. As Burhan said, it's easier, in a lot of ways to make that leap.
Thank you so much.
In the chat, there were a few questions in the chat. I want to kind of put them together and answer this. I think we have to separate out the idea of being a finance professional and the idea of running a business. The two are separate things. Business getting a finance degree is not going to help you start a business. You're an entrepreneur. You're going to start a business. So Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, none of them went to college and got a degree in business, and that helped them start a business. Business comes from a very different place. Here we're talking about how to become a finance professional. So it's not like you need money and start a business piece. The other part that I want to say is because Yunus and I have kind of focused on STEM. While you do that, there's another piece that you have to do. And this is what the older you get, as you move through different phases of your career, you then say, I wish I had spent more time reading and writing. Reading kya? Anything and everything. Mes Janadgar Mohan Manan, the Paus Yeten Kagas Waruk Mili, you told the par. Mercy Tamsat Fikri Tarankia in Yume Tamsat Vanaus. So read Akhbar Tul par, magazine tul par, kitab tul par. And kitab, I don't mean your textbooks. Read. Because the more, agar kaise novel parno shauq chhe, read. Kaise fiction parno shauq chhe, read. Kaise read. Because the more you read, insana should tuta demaga opportunity milan to think about this, to think about that, to think about that. The other part is write. Because at the end of the day, whatever field you end up in, communication. Can you read? Can you write? Can you communicate? So, you thought to period. The becho here again, I'll give you an example. Meus parun khara. Like to pick up a book and to read 100-page book, like pages and I will be like, that's just me. I think my teacher when you should bewkoof and mission parnok show and mission time. Then there's a app that came, Audible. Audiobooks. That worked for me. So I started listening to books. We are all different. Somebody likes to listen to a book, somebody likes to read a book, somebody likes to sleep. While reading a book, we're all different, but find whatever works for you and read. Read as diversely as you can find, and find opportunities to write, and find opportunities to improve your communication skills. So keep this. STEM is going to give you the easier path into the profession. This shock of reading, writing, this will make your life easier professionally at work, in progressing through your career. Because those 8 घंटे 10 घंटे for example काम करान 8 घंटों में शायद आसान या email पढ़ा या email न जवाब दिवा या चीज़ आसान कुनी meeting में, right? So read. That's what I'll say. ये जन कागज वारुक मिलियो, pick it up and read it.
Thank you so much. I think that is very, very important. And a lot of scholars have resonated with these lines from your end. So we have a question from Suhaib Hamid. In Kashmir, business is usually affected by turmoil. How can one keep his financial business stability in those times? Because parents usually oppose here the same.
So I think this is going to the question. I said there's a different type of, right, when we talk about running a business, it's a very different idea of becoming a financial professional who is working for a business or operating in a business. The best thing you can do when you don't know the answer to something is admit it and say, I don't know the answer to that question. The Kashmiri man's running a business, I don't know the answer to the question. But you know what I can do? Which dua sa Kashmiri, Shabir Gojwari. He has run many different types of businesses. One can his business. He doesn't mention a pie to his degree. I honestly don't know. We have to get you a speaker who has run a business in Kashmir and knows what he's talking about. I have no idea how to answer the question. And the best thing I have learned in life, when I don't know something, I should raise my hand and I say, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question.
I think that is called intellectual honesty and integrity, basically. So, well done. And at the same time, I will also be in your boat on that, Burhan. I don't think we are qualified enough, to answer that question, because we really do not have the ground level experience, of running a business, basically. However, what we can do is we can, have a speaker from Kashmir, right? Who runs small businesses, basically, or who has built a business in Kashmir, to tell you what it takes, right? To run a business. I will again go and tell you this. If you get a STEM education again, chances are that your risks basically for a business are relatively low, right? Because you can write your own ticket in that and you can build your own franchise, right? So you don't have to invest in all the infrastructure that comes in running a physical business, basically, right? In that. But we will get you somebody, if that is something that is of interest to all of you, that you want to know how to start a small business, how to run a business basically in Kashmir, we will get you somebody who can talk intelligently to that, to that effect.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. We have a couple of more questions. I think we can just have a fun exercise to energize all of you. So I don't know anything about finance, but I know one thing: we can do a calculations exercise for a while. So your fingers on your chat board right now with me. If we have 3, then we multiply it with 4 and add 7. If we have 3, okay. Marunesa, I'm going to take your question after that. If we have 3, then multiply it by 4. 3 into 4 plus 5 divided by 7. So जो भी सबसे पहले आंसर देगा उसको मिलेंगे 500 rupees dash dash dash.
Sir, could you repeat the question?
That is the point, Dansh. We can't repeat it. You have to be extremely, active. We have another question. 12.7. Okay.
2.42.
Yeah, amazing.
2.42.
Okay, I'll announce the right answers in a while. So we have another question. 17 multiplied by 4 divided by 3.
Divided by 22 by 3.
I really want to see your curious faces right now. But आप लोगों ने वीडियो काफी सारों ने ऑफ किए.
22.
22.
Point
किसका आंसर 22 आया?
66. So last one.
22.66.
अमेजिंग. तो अभी सारे वर्चुअल तालियां बजाएंगे जिन्होंने ये वाला जवाब सही दिया. So अपना कैलकुलेशन सारे रखेंगे. So we have another question. 56 into 93 divided by 2.
So 2604.
2604.
2604.
See, guys, we are just trying to impress Burhan sir. So he's already impressed with all your, calculative skills. Just one more question, then we'll announce the winner for today. 91 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 4.
Sir, 1092.
1092.
1092.
1092, sir.
See the nutshell takeaway from this whole thing was that कि आप जिस स्कूल में पढ़े हो, बुरहान सर, यून सर और मैं पढ़ के आ चुके हैं. So you got your calculators right with you, but it is okay. I mean, as long as you are involved in the process. So huge round of applause for everybody. आप सबको 500 rupees मिलेंगे डैश. आप जैसे ईदी खत्म होगी, ईदी के तौर पे हम देंगे, बट डैश याद रखना because we have to fill in that blank after after Eid. So we have a question from Mehrunisa Mariam. Mehrunisa Mariam, please unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
So am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead,
Yes,
please.
you are.
Okay, sir. Since you are from the field of finance, so I just want to know what are the major challenges that the field is going to see in the coming 10 or 20 years? And what are the points where we as students, or I guess job providers or job seekers, should strike in order to get to a high position in the near future? Like, I'll quote an example. Right now in our country, India, there is a huge scarcity of oxygen. And I guess not only in India, in a lot of countries, there's a hue and cry related to oxygen. So if as a, kind of manufacturer, if I start a manufacturing unit of oxygen cylinders, where I'll manufacture oxygen cylinders and provide or export them to other countries where there is scarcity. So I guess that will take me to a place where I will have financial stability and I'll just be able to provide jobs to some 1,000 people more. So I want to know what are those points right now in the field of finance where we as business people can strike in order to see ourselves at a successful position or at a high position in the near future.
So, excellent question. I'll separate the question out into two parts because I think there are two different issues. One, what is at least from my point of view, what do I see the future of finance and the challenges and opportunities there? We'll sound like a broken record here, Yunus and I, and we'll say what we see happening to finance is finance. If you take an economics book from 100 years ago, there was no math in it. There was not a single formula in it. It was like reading a political science book or philosophy book. There were no formulas in it. Finance is just a subset of economics. Then what happened over time is math started getting into finance. And really now, if you want to be a finance major, you're really a math major. You're going to be a math engineering major, which the application is finance. So what I see in finance is finance is just going to become kind of an application of computer science and math. So that's what's going, it already has, but from what I view, that's the future of finance. So to best prepare for it, STEM. STEM is what will best prepare you for it. The second part you raise is, it's not a question of finance. The second part you're raising is, it's more a question of you as a young person are looking at the world and saying, I see an issue. And the issue I see is a shortage of oxygen. I'm going to solve this problem. It has nothing to do with finance. It has nothing to do with finance as a profession. It is you as a young person looking at the world and saying, there's a problem. I'm going to solve it. At some point, you may need a finance professional, an accountant, an engineer to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish. So what are those issues in the world that you are going to solve? I don't know. How are you going to solve them? I honestly don't know the answer to that question either. But one thing that has now happened is, this is something Yunus alluded to earlier. I see a shortage of oxygen in my neighborhood. I have to figure out where to buy it from. I think and I can buy it from place X. I need Y rupees to buy it. Oh, I can do a crowdfunding thing. This is where technology has come, and there are those things whereby somebody with an idea can go on the internet and find all the resources, or at least lobby for the resources and say, come fund me. This is what I want to do. Agar main ye akal aaya ki what the business is to solve the shortage of oxygen, I would have done that. So here I'm going to plead ignorance and say, I actually don't know. I don't know what problems you all are going to identify. I don't know how you're going to solve them. That is where your youth, your passion, your intelligence is going to come into play. And all we can tell you is, crowdfunding, there are things like that whereby you can start a GoFundMe account and say, this is my idea, come fund me. Yunus, anything you want to add?
I'm just going to add one more thing to what you said, right? And I think, you alluded to that earlier as well, which is this basically. Your generation is a lot more cognizant about the impact of civilization basically on natural resources, on the environment, what have you, right? There are two or three ideas that I will leave with you. As somebody works in an industry which kind of marries finance with natural resources, I mean that's what the commodities industry is all about, oil and gas basically. Like one thing I will tell you is that people who look at renewable energy, will there are going to be opportunities there. You have to figure out. I mean, हमारे अपने कश्मीर में environment के साथ क्या हो रहा है, what are some of the other sources of energy, and I can dedicate a talk specifically on this topic basically at some point or the other down the road, right? We can talk about what renewable energy is, how carbon impacts the world. I would tell you is that water, the scarcity of water basically is going to be a big issue as we go forward. So ideas which focus upon drinking water, purification of water, right? Having accessible water to a large population, right, are going to be something that people are going to look to monetize, right? That's the second thing. I mean, specifically things that are coming to my mind, right? One thing again, we will go back and tell you, and this is what Burhan told you, right? Engineers tend to be problem solvers, basically, right? So whatever the problem, right? STEM education is basically, again, going to gear you towards solving those problems, coming up with solutions for those problems, right? And thinking out of the box, basically, as to how to solve the problem. आप देखें एक ज़माना था कि भाई the automobile, the transportation industry was all about non-renewable fuels, carbon-based fuels, hydrocarbons, basically things like petrol, like diesel. It's changing towards electrification. Basically. With electrification comes the need for batteries. That is another area, which is going to see huge growth over the next 10, 15 years, however long it takes, right? Storage of batteries, charging of batteries, doing it quickly, building infrastructure around that. These are certain ideas that I can think of. I'm sure there are many, many more. In this regard.
There
are two very good questions. There are two very good questions that I'm reading in the chat box, right?
Sir, just to interrupt there, we have some questions in my chat box. They have been continuously asking for that.
Okay, go ahead, please. Go ahead. But I want to make sure that we have Fauzia's question. These are two. This is an excellent question. Go ahead, please.
Athar Ibrahim has asked, sir, as we know that nowadays cryptocurrency is in trend. Please tell us how it can boost economic development and why are people so crazy in investing in Bitcoins?
I think Yunus is far more qualified to answer this question, but here's my attempt at answering it. I'll separate out the popularity of Bitcoin from first the idea of Bitcoin. What I find most fascinating about Bitcoin is not Bitcoin, it's the underlying technology, blockchain. And without getting into details, and I'm not an engineer, so I will mess up the details. When I read about the concept of blockchain, and I say, my God, how many subspecialties in finance especially, or how is this fundamentally going to change how operations are run within an entity? So I find the underlying concept of blockchain just fascinating. I think what industries will it impact? I don't know. I don't understand industries enough to know the impact, but there's a technology underlying it, the ideas underlying it. I find that just fascinating. Just for the byaak cheez, why people find it fascinating. Much in the earlier side, I put there this psychology, behavioral finance. Kashir man shu Srinagar man bad mashhur tulip garden, right? Which is actually but photo one man shu bada asal. Does anybody know agar mumkin ak tulip bulb beham? How much is it? Twitchy ak tulip bulb.
Let's say it's 100 rupees. Let's say something. Just throw out the number.
Okay, Saima says Wuhrapi. At one point in Europe, in Yasirin Kor correction, Bahrapi shayad. So at one point in Holland, I think at one point a tulip bulb used to cost takriban 800 canals of farmland. One bulb. In finance, in the history of finance, there's a concept called financial bubble. The first recorded financial bubble is tulips. When people start buying something, not because they need it, but they buy something because they think they can sell it at a higher price. So I have no idea. So Achitikasan, something gets popular, people talk about it. No, but why it's called speculative investments. So maybe there's a little bit of that emotional, psychological herd mentality. It's popular. I think on the investment side, there's a lot of it about Bitcoin and Dogecoin and all that kind of stuff. But these things, if you look through history of financial markets, Yunus and I are older, so we remember 1990s, late 1990s. We remember late 1990s. There were thousands and thousands of IT companies, .com companies. Out of those, only 2 or 3% survived. But those 2 or 3% who survived, they're changing our world. Apple, Google, Netflix, Amazon, Facebook. They're completely changing the way the world is being run. I want to go to the question that I think it was Fozia asked. But first, because I don't want to give up that question that I think is a very important question, but I first want to let Yunus add if he wanted to add anything to the
part of the reason
Bitcoin conversation.
Popularity basically is that it gives again, it comes back to the independence. That the generation basically is seeking. From institutions and what have you. It gives the younger generation. It gives a new set of investors a different store of value, right? A different store of value which is independent basically of to a large extent, at least now. It might change. And again, it is not legal in India, by the way, right? A different store of value, basically, a different vehicle for investments, which is outside the influence of governments, right? And ultimately, they view this basically as something that can be a store of value that can be the currency for the future, right? We've already seen some of the bigger companies starting to embrace it, basically. It's starting to become a new asset class. Ultimately, it will also get to find its equilibrium and come to basically, a fair market value basically for it, right? But we are still some time away. From all of that. I definitely think that it's here to stay. And in 10 years, or so, the world is going to look very different. Whether or not Bitcoin is going to be $55,000 at that time or not is a totally different discussion, basically, right? We can spend time on that. But go ahead. I think people are saying it's Namaz time. We'll take another 2 or 3 questions and then we'll stop. Umar, over to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. We are actually, having 4 more minutes to the session. Question from Fozia. Actually, 2 questions. So I'm going to read both of them. The economic recession which happened due to COVID affected the admissions acceptance rate for financial aid international students last year. Do you think that will be the same thing this year also, or do you see economy of US getting better? That's one question. Second one is, how is it different if I do A, undergrad from India and then masters in US or UK, B, undergrad in US and then no masters at all?
So Fozia, excellent questions, and I think this is what we'll wrap up with. Last year when COVID hit, universities got financially hit. So you're right about that. But then the government dumped a lot of money into universities, so things are very different this year than they were last year. So I would expect you to get support this year that you did not get last year. Having said that, education in the US, the industry is going through a transformation whereby there's a separation happening among kind of the higher ranked schools and the more lower ranked regional schools. The regional schools are going to have less and less money for supporting international students. They're going to be looking for international students who are paying customers. This is my business. This is what I do. So we have an international office, and I have told them, you're not supporting with scholarships. You're going to find paying customers because I work for a regional university. I don't work for a Harvard-type university. The Harvard-type universities, the higher-ranked universities, they are flush in cash. They have enough money, and they want to bring in diversity, especially women. If a young woman in high school applying for a STEM field in any U.S. university stands a better chance than a man, because they want to bring women into STEM. So this is where picking and choosing the universities you apply to becomes important, which is where your grades become important, your extracurricular activities become important, your story becomes important. The second question, if multiple factors, how comfortable your parents are in letting you go in undergrad, so leaving that part aside, can you afford it? I would say come do your undergraduate in the US in a STEM field. That's the path I would take. Do an undergraduate degree in the US in STEM engineering, and then you can work here for up to 3 years. After you do that, you get a temporary visa for 3 years. Those 3 years, if you're in computer science, if you had to borrow money to get an undergraduate degree, you will pay it off back in 1 or 2 years. You'll make enough money to do that. Then get a master's here. I would say now, given where we are going, master's is the new bachelor's. Don't even think your education is going to stop before you complete a master's degree. Eunice, anything you want to add, and then we can wrap up?
Oh, no, I mean, that was an excellent answer. There are a couple of things that basically I would like mention. You might have already covered on some of those, right? I don't think that finances are going to be a hurdle. I don't want people, to get, like our scholars, to get an unrealistic expectation. And you were very clear about that as well when you said, get paying customers. However, we have seen that more and more higher education, big name universities, I have been posting it on my Facebook, page, over the last few days as well, from Kashmir are finding fully funded, basically, scholarships in many universities, right, across the US. There are young kids, who have just gotten accepted in big name universities in the US, who are now guiding other kids and showing them the path. There's this organization called What, who's helping some of these kids. KEI can help some of these kids as well. But the main point is as follows, right? There will be funding available for the right candidate. There will be funding available for the candidate, basically, like who can tell his story very well, who works hard, who has the grades, who has the extracurriculars, who has the profile ultimately, and the credentials that a big name university right, desires, right? And in that case, find out what these scholars, who have been accepted are, what their stories are like, what their career paths are like. Not everybody comes from a wealthy family. There are so many like scholars, who have gotten accepted, who did not have the resources to do so, but the university provided them, the resources. That is what I will tell you. I will leave you with that thought. Where there is a will, there is a way. Do your research, find out what it takes, and then reach out to people, who have already done it, ask them to show you the path, guide you, what have you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think this has been a very, very interesting session for all of us. I think a lot of learning for me.
We wanted to make it casual. So,
I think we can collectively thank this time. I don't see you in the capacity of president today. So I see you more as somebody from the sector and understanding this whole thing. So I'm getting a lot of questions. So I'm sorry, scholars, for now we can't take it, but we'll share these questions with Burhan sir. So he's going to revert back. But then there are scholars who want some extended session on this again. We can think of that session as well, maybe after Ramadan. What do you think, Sir Yun sir, Burhan sir?
Absolutely, we are always there. Again, I'm always there for all the scholars. Whenever you want, to have a session, let us know. I will be glad, to have it. Right?
Absolutely.
पर जिसके लिए नमाज का टाइम अभी है, जो wants to drop off, please do. Right? आप माह रमजान है, आप अपनी नमाज कज़ा नहीं करें. Completely, basically, like I'm totally, flexible with that. The other thing is that we will, we are here to serve, right? So one thing that would help us, and this is, for all our scholars, right, is tell us what you would like to learn more about, right? अभी तो हम आपको बताते हैं कि भाई ये finance है, ये energy है, ये है, right? आप हमें बताएं, what you would like to learn about. Today somebody spoke about, knowing what it takes to run a business in Kashmir. I'm going to make a note of it, and I'm going to get somebody who's a very good person in this regard. Who can talk to you guys, right? But we want some of this to come from you as well. Because you are our customers, and the customer is always right. So tell us, what you need, and we'll have that. No problem, Umar. Whenever you need us, I'm here.
Yeah, so I actually was referring this in context because a lot of times when we go beyond certain conventional streams, so today I think we did a piece of capacitation, and in coming time they can process it and get back, after maybe 1 month, and we can have one more session where we can go a bit deeper into this. So this is going to give them a thought, and time to understand and how they can think about and perceive this sector holistically. So in that capacity, I'm thinking, we can do it that way in coming time. But we do have requests for the extended session as well. On the other side, as we spoke about businesses in Kashmir, I would personally request that we should address it in two ways. One is looking at the business which is in seed phase, and the other one which is in expansion phase. So we can think of two speakers on two sessions, or maybe a collective session from two speakers on
yes,
that.
Correct.
Just wanted to get that on board. But thank you so much, Burhan sir. Trust me, it has been a lot of learning for me personally, and the sincerity, and how you just stay straight with your responses. It has been a lot of learning. But we'll definitely want you more. Scholars want you more. And thank you so much, scholars, for staying with us till now. And we'll see you soon, inshallah, at the workshops. So anything you want to add, Burhan sir, sir, you can go ahead, and then we'll close the session.
Yes, I would like I'd like Burhan to have the final word, but from my side, Eid Mubarak to all of you. Every day I pray for all of you during this holy month. I have prayed for my KEI family. May Allah, keep you safe. May He, grant you all, the success in this world, and may He keep your families, safe. Aap sab salamat raho. Eid Mubarak to you. Eid Mubarak to you and your families. Be safe. Be safe and be well. Burhan, over to you for the last word, please, and thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you. To all the scholars, Bashir, to Duan Mazhai Vaisani Yad, and inshallah things work out. Things will work out. Eid Mubarak to you, Eid Mubarak to your families, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Burhan sir. Thanks so much, Yun sir. Thanks so much, Yasir sahab. Yasir has been there for the whole time. And thank you so much, scholars. I won't say Eid Mubarak because I have one more interaction with you before you. So I'll say it right on that. Thank you so much, everybody. Allah Hafiz.